it's Nicole. Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I have two new releases from the brand ILNP. I have their new Playground collection as well as their new Brunch collection. The Playground collection is in the brand's Boutique line and the Brunch collection is in the brand's Studio Color line. ILNP's Boutique line has all of their fun effects like magnetics, shimmers, crellies, all that kind of stuff. And their Studio Color line is where they release all of their jellies and cream finish nail polishes. Okay, I'm just gonna read from the press release because I keep messing up how to say this collection was inspired by, so just let's read together, children. Jump into Playground, a 6-piece mixed finish collection inspired by playful palettes and the joy of carefree fun. And the Brunch collection is 4 creme finish nail polishes inspired by, well, brunch. The Playground and Brunch collections officially launch this Friday, February 27th on the ILNP website. ILNP offers international shipping from here in the US, and they're also available on Amazon and Etsy. So I will of course have links in the description box on all the places where you can pick up ILNP nail polishes. Both of the collections featured in today's video were gifted to me by ILNP. This video is not sponsored, but thank you very much to ILNP for gifting me these polishes. So as always, in the description box, links to where you can pick these polishes up, the brand's social media pages, my social media pages, and of course, timestamps as well. And as always, I'll save all my final thoughts and feelings for the end of the video. Let's just get right into this one. I'm gonna start off this video with the Playground collection because I feel like that was more fun. The first polish up is called Adrian, and ILNP describes this one as a deep azure blue nail polish with an icy blue magnetic pigment. Adrian had a fantastic formula. I would describe Adrian as having a medium blue base. I feel like the color of this medium blue is on the darker end of a medium blue. I wouldn't say it's a dark blue, but it's darker. It's medium. It's a darker end of medium with a light blue magnetic pigment. I was pleasantly surprised that this one reached full opacity in 2 coats. For my live swatches, I'll be showing this one in 2 coats on its own, in 2 coats magnetized with the cat eye effect, in 3 coats magnetized with the velvet effect. I did use the ILNP horseshoe style magnet. If you were unaware, ILNP does indeed have a horseshoe style magnet, so I used their magnet for this particular shade, but spoiler alert, all the horseshoe magnets are exactly the same, so you don't need to get this specific one. And then I also showed it in this kind of zigzag effect that I've been really liking magnetic polishes lately. I honestly don't know what that effect is called, so I just keep calling it zigzag. It's basically if you have a horseshoe style magnet and put a bar magnet on top of that, it gives this kind of woo 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 effect. Adrian had a really fantastic formula. This one applied super duper easily for me. I feel like the base on this is a super saturated kind of blue, so I do kind of feel like this is a potential stainer. I found this one magnetized super duper easily for me using a whole variety of magnets. Personally, I feel like I like this one more with the horseshoe effect or the zigzag effect, but I feel like it looks great magnetized any of the ways. I did find that unmagnetized, this doesn't have that kind of look where some magnetic polishes look kind of like unfinished without magnetizing them. I didn't find that this looked that way. This is, however, one of those magnetic shades that because the base color on this is so dark, it does look a lot lighter in color unmagnetized than it does with the magnetic effect. Nothing in here is going to dry down textured. Removals are going to be fairly easy, but on the more messy side because it is indeed magnetic pigment, but you could scrub this one off if you really wanted. The next polish up is called Building Blocks, and this is in the brand's Speckled finish, and they describe this one as a creamy beige nail polish with red, yellow, green, and blue metallic flakes. Building Blocks also had a really nice formula. This is in, if you're new to this brand's Speckled formula, I would best describe them as being kind of like opaque crelly bases. I feel like they skirt the line between being a crelly and a cream. They do reach full opacity on their own, but they have like just enough sheerness in the overall base where you can still see the kind of little speckle of the flakies. The base color on this particular shade, I would describe it as kind of a very warm beige shade. I feel like it has like a little bit of like a peachiness undertone to it. I am obviously not an expert on beige skin tones, but I do think that this is potentially going to be somebody's skin color shade. So this polish has a speckled finish. So there are these itty bitty teeny tiny little metallic flakes in here. So I was seeing red, blue, green, and yellow metallic flakes in this polish. They are super, 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 super tiny. I did find that for the most even application for this particular shade, I feel like it applies better in medium to slightly thicker coats. The base itself is indeed a little bit on the thicker side, but not so thick that I had any difficulty with application. I felt that this one just applied better with slightly thicker coats, not like crazy thick, just like enough that you have like a good amount of polish on your brush. You could just put it on without digging your brush into your previous coats, basically. I was able to reach full opacity with building blocks in only 2 coats. However, for the live swatch, you'll see that I added a 3rd coat. My only reasoning for adding the 3rd coat is because I wanted more of those little flakes on the nail, because I just like having the flakes on the nail. Fortunately, unfortunately, I did find that because the base on this one is indeed so opaque, I kind of lost the majority of the flakes that I had on the 1st coat. So by adding the 3rd coat, I only could see the flakes from the 2nd and 3rd coats. So adding a 3rd coat was completely unnecessary. Because the little speckly flakies in here are so ridiculously small, they do not dry down overly textured at all. Like, you barely feel them on the nail. I will still recommend glossy top coat because this one does dry down like a little bit dull. The flakes are going to make for a more messy removal, but I don't foresee these being terribly difficult to remove because they're very flat and they're not like textured like a glitter. The next polish up is called Caterpillar, and ILNP describes this one as a deep green jelly base with a scattered holographic flake. Oh, that's a flake? Oh. Okay, that makes more sense. So Caterpillar also had a fantastic formula. Because this one is in a jelly base, you are gonna wanna build this one up to kind of get a bit more opacity and coverage on your nails. I did find, however, that even when built up in 3 coats, this does not reach full opacity. You do still have like a little bit of visible nail line with this particular shade. I absolutely love how saturated this tone of green is. It is so freaking pretty. I do feel like it is skirting the line, in my opinion, between what I think of as like a primary green, leaning like a little bit towards like a forest green. I am very surprised that ILNP is using holographic flakes in this particular polish. I found what I was seeing in person on the nail, I could have sworn that I was seeing a bit of like a linear holographic flame to these polishes. Like, I felt like I could see the hollow just trying to be like, in, you know, linear. You know those kind of like fun hollows where it is kind of linear, but it's also scattered at the same time? That's what I thought this one was. I thought that they were using like a type of linear holographic pigment. I did not even clock that these were flakies. I thought that this was like a pigment instead of a flake. That being said, the flakies in here do not dry down textured. These dry down super, super smoothly. Like, again, when I did my swatch, I really thought that these were linear hollows and not a flake. And again, even when built up in 3 coats, I did still have fairly obvious visible nail line with this shade. But I do think that if you wear this one with a blurring base coat, you could potentially kind of hide that nail line a little bit. But in my personal opinion, it wasn't like that drastic. That was like, oh my God, my nail line. Yeah, it wasn't like that. It was not that serious. My live swatch shows Caterpillar in 3 coats. Super duper easy removal, just slightly messy from all the little hollow bits that are apparently flakes. The next polish up is called Peekaboo, and ILNP describes this one as a sunny yellow jelly nail polish with yellow iridescent flakies. Peekaboo also had a fantastic formula. This is a bright, cartoony, sunshiny yellow base. I do agree with the color description that I did receive for ILNP. This is a bright, sunshiny yellow with yellow flakies. However, I did find that there was this additional pigment in here. I'm currently trying to call it a glitter. I don't know what it is and I don't know what color it is, but I see these like tiny little speckles that look like they're shaped like really tiny micro hex glitters, but I don't know what color. I don't know what that is. I'm just seeing all these little dots and I can't tell you what color it is or what component. Like, I don't know what it is, but I see it's there. So Peekaboo applied super duper evenly and very nicely. I did find that since this one is in a jelly base, you do need to build it up to kind of gain some opacity going. I personally loved how this one looked in 2 coats. I was not really a fan of it in 3 coats. 3 coats of this particular polish do indeed hide the majority of your nail line, but I could indeed still see it under my studio lighting. I just personally think this one looks better in 2 coats. It does have quite a bit less opacity in 2 coats, but I just feel like it just looks better in my opinion in 2. The flakies and the unknown component in here do dry down with some very slight texture, and the polish also dries down a little bit dull. So you will of course want some glossy top coat to bring some life back to the polish as well as smooth everything out. Removal for this particular shade is going to be fairly messy. I would not personally recommend scrubbing this one off. Definitely use the soak off method or a peel off base coat. The next polish up is called Recess, and ILNP describes this one as a primary red jelly base with iridescent flakies. As someone who still struggles with not saying I don't like red nail polish, I was in love with how this particular one looked. This is a juicy red. I love this red. It did not feel like a seasonal red. I felt like it just felt, just like what the brand said, a primary red. I feel like that's where it was. It didn't feel overly warm or cool toned. I was really staring at my nail when I had this one on, trying to decide what colors I was seeing in the iridescent flakies. I think the flakies are pink, red, and orange. I kind of was going back and forth if I was seeing kind of like a yellowy color. I don't want to fully commit to saying that there is indeed a yellow color shift in here, but there's definitely pink, red, and orange. I swatched this one out in 3 coats. It does indeed dry down fairly glossy on its own, but I still would recommend glossy top coat. The dimension that you get from building this one up in 3 coats is why I would indeed recommend building it up in 3 coats. But I feel like if you don't mind a more sheer look on the nail, it's pretty passable in 2. It still looks very even in 2 coats if you want to go for a more sheer look, but I did still have some visible nailing with this particular shade even after 3 coats. Once again, I would recommend the soak off method or peel off base coat for this particular shade. While I did not personally experience staining upon removal of this polish, the red pigment did indeed seem to want to stick to my nail quite a bit. So double up or triple up on base coat if you're really concerned about staining. And the final polish in the Playground collection is called Scribbles. ILNP is describing this one as a sky blue nail polish with blue metallic flakes and scattered holographic sparkle. Scribbles had a pretty good but slightly thicker formula. I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to add nail polish thinner to this particular one. I ended up not adding thinner when I was doing my swatch for this particular shade, but I feel like it was, again, it was just on the line of needing thinner. The base color on this one is a very vibrant sky blue. I feel like if you can picture in your head kind of like a cartoon that is having an almost kind of like neon psychedelic-y trippy kind of like outdoor scene, the color of the sky, if you picture that, that's the base color of this. And yes, I acknowledge that that is super specific, but that's the color that I see when I see the base color of this particular shade. I believe the blue metallic flakes in this particular polish are the same type of flakes that we saw earlier in this release. So they are, once again, super duper small and they do not dry down overly textured at all. There also is an additional, like, very delicate holographic sparkle. I really love the addition of the holographic sparkle in this particular shade. I've picked up quite a few of ILNP's past speckle shades, and in my personal opinion, I feel like adding holographic to those, like, I feel like it makes them look better, again, in my personal opinion. So I really like that this one has those additional holographic little speckles in them. I am gonna call Scribbles a 2 to 3 coater depending on your application style. I feel like on my first coat, I went in with too thin of a layer, and I feel like I had just like a little bit of unevenness on my overall nail, so I did opt to add a 3rd coat for this particular shade, but I don't think that's gonna be completely necessary depending on your own application style. And again, I feel like if I added thinner to this one, that probably would have solved that issue as well. Nothing in here is gonna dry down overly textured. 1 layer of top coat is gonna do you good. Removal is gonna be fairly easy, but messy from the little flaky doodads and the hollow. All right, then let's get into the brunch collection. So these are 4 cream finish nail polishes in the brand Studio Color line. So one of the differences with the Studio Color line is that this line of polishes from ILNP do feature a rounded paddle brush. So the brush is indeed different than their normal brush. I feel like as customers, we just have to keep telling ILNP we want all of their polishes to have the rounded paddle brush, and I feel like eventually they will indeed cave. So do your thing, folks. Tell them you want a different brush. The first polish up is called Patisserie, and ILNP describes this one as a warm coral cream. Patisserie had a fantastic formula. This one was, however, slightly on the thicker side, but not so thick that I felt that I needed to add nail polish thinner to it. This also self-leveled perfectly, and it is super smooth application. I'll be swatching this one out in 2 coats. I do, however, think if you go in for a slightly thicker first coat, you could indeed get this one to be opaque in 1, but I didn't do that. I agree with ILNP's color description for this shade. To elaborate on it a little bit more, I would describe this one as kind of like a warm coral shade. I feel like it has like just a slight amount of duskiness to it. Like, I feel like this particular color is just very much giving me like this belongs in like the desert somewhere. Like, I feel like I saw colors like this when I went to the desert a couple of years back. Because this is a cream shade, it is going to be super duper easy to remove because it's just a cream. The next polish up is called Pistachio, and ILNP describes this one as a soft pistachio green. Pistachio also had a fantastic but slightly thicker formula. I did get this one opaque on me in only 1 coat, But again, my swatches will be showing this one in 2 coats. Even though this one was a bit on the thicker side, I did still find it applied super evenly, super smoothly, self-leveled perfectly as well. Like I feel like this had like the perfect consistency. I feel, for me personally, I feel like when I want an opaque cream, this is the consistency that I want from an opaque cream. I do agree with the brand's color description for this shade. This is very much that kind of like funky shade that we saw a lot in like the 1970s. Like I feel like this should be a rug somewhere. Because this one is so opaque, I will caution against staining, even though I didn't personally experience staining when I was swatching this one out. And it's a cream, super duper easy removal, of course. The next polish up is called Short Stack, and ILNP describes this one as a soft maple beige cream. I will admit, I don't know what maple beige means. I'm assuming maple as in the tree, right? Somebody let me know what they think maple means in this context. I would just call this one a beige, like it's beige. I don't know about the maple aspect, but like it's beige. This was another 1 coater on me, but my swatches are of course gonna be showing it built up in 2 coats. And again, this was that same kind of like slightly thicker consistency that I expect from an ILNP opaque cream. Pretty much all of this brand's creams are in this same kind of like formulation. They do generally just lean more on the slightly thicker side that you expect from like an opaque cream. I don't foresee anybody needing more than 2 coats for this particular shade. It self-levels beautifully, applies beautifully as well, and super duper easy removal because it's a cream. And the final polish in the release is called Ube, and ILNP describes this one as a milky lavender cream. But I feel like this particular shade is very much what I expect from this like a pale purpley lavender cream. I feel like this is slightly on the warmer side of tones. Ube also applied beautifully, fantastic formula, slightly on the thicker side, but again, what I expect from a more opaque cream. This had a really great formula, and I don't foresee anyone needing more than 2 coats for it. This is just a really, really pretty shade. I don't feel like it's the color of Ube. I'm a little surprised they didn't just call this one lavender, to be honest, but nobody asked me. Because it's a cream, it's gonna be super duper easy to remove, and yeah. Okie dokie, let's do some comparisons. So because I don't have full hand swatches for these or daylight shots, I just wanted to throw in some comparisons as well. If you haven't seen my comparisons before, this is Mr. Avocado. He is my official helper for comparisons. So to compare to Recess, I pulled out Secret Santa and Raincoat. I pulled out Secret Santa because I thought it would be the most similar color-wise and specialty finishes to Recess, and I pulled out Raincoat because it had flakies. Raincoat is very much more of a burnt orange as opposed to a red like these other 2 shades. I feel like on camera it's coming across as looking very red, but in person I would put this in like the burnt orange family. If the flakies in Raincoat are not the same as the flakies in Recess, I would be very surprised. From this angle at least, they are looking very similar flaky wise. And also all of the swatches for these comparisons are in 2 coats, by the way. So next up to compare Peekaboo, I pulled out Sunburst. Immediately when I saw Peekaboo, I immediately was wondering how it would compare to Sunburst. I love Sunburst. This is one of my favorite ILNP shades that they have. It's such a pretty yellow flaky polish. So I'm just gonna put my hand here as the background because I feel like over a white, you could not see anything here. So in comparison for Peekaboo and Sunburst, I would say Sunburst is a bit more sheer. Color-wise, I think the bases on them are indeed different. I think the flakies might be the same or at least very, very similar. The big difference between them, in my opinion, is Peekaboo has those little like glitter bits that I still don't know what on earth they are. And I would also say that Sunburst is also quite a bit lighter. These are definitely not dupes, but I do think that they are going to be fairly similar. I feel like the color difference is more visible over white here than it was over my hand. So again, I don't think they're dupes, but I do think they are going to be fairly similar. And to compare Caterpillar, I pulled out Jelly Bean and Willow. As soon as I saw this, I knew I wanted to compare it to Jelly Bean. I feel like this is coming across a little bit blown out. Jelly Bean is like a neonish type of green base, and so I feel like it's blowing out my camera a little bit. The 2 polishes are indeed fairly similar though. They are both jelly bases, but Caterpillar has a significantly darker green base as opposed to Jelly Bean's base that is more of like a neonish green base. I don't think ILNP ever officially called this one a neon, but for all intents and purposes, it behaves like a neon. And then for Willow, I just pulled this one out because it's green. It does not have the little holographic glitters like these 2 other polishes have. It has more of like that flaky shimmer kind of base that ILNP likes to use. To compare to Adrian, I pulled out Mood Ring Songbird, and then Cannonball. I, for whatever reason, did not have a lot of magnetic blue polishes from this brand. This was the only one that I thought would be fairly similar. And then I just pulled out these two because I didn't have blue magnetics from the brand, so I just wanted to pull out a couple other blues so you could just see them color-wise. As you can see, nothing too similar, at least not in my ILNP collection. Mood Ring has more of like a reddish colored shimmer. I also think this one is color shifty, whereas Adrian, it is strictly just blue on blue. So to compare to Scribbles, I did not have a single blue speckled polish from this brand, so I pulled out one of my other speckled polishes just to compare the two side by side. And then I also put building blocks right here because, again, I didn't have any other speckles in this color. And then right here is the Polish Bear. So the biggest difference between these is that Scribbles also has a holographic element to it, whereas the other speckled polishes do not have that. But again, I just put these together because they were all speckled finishes, and yeah. And now for the brunch collection, to compare to Ube, I pulled out Holo Taco's Lavender, ILNP's Melted. For whatever reason, I really thought that Ube was going to be a lot more similar to Holo Taco's Lavender. It is not. Ube is quite a bit darker, and I would say it's kind of grayed out in comparison. So it's more like grayish in comparison to Lavender. And then Melted is like not similar at all. For the comparison to Pistachio, I once again pulled out a couple of Holo Taco shades because I just don't have that many ILNP creams that I thought would be comparable. So for Pistachio, I pulled out Holo Taco's Not Pressed. I'm fairly confident that this one has been discontinued. These two are not dupes, unfortunately. I also pulled out Holo Taco's Matcha Maker, which I think has also been discontinued. And then right here we have Holo Taco's Crime and Punishment. And then finally right here we have ILNP's Treetop. So I don't think any of these are terribly similar to the others, but these were all like the greens that I thought would be like vaguely comparable. Next up to compare to Patisserie, I pulled out ILNP's Cream Pop and ILNP's Caramel. Once again, I didn't have anything from the brand that I thought was fairly similar. Nothing in my Holo Taco drawer was standing out that I thought would be similar to this, so I didn't pull out any other Holo Tacos. If anyone has any things that they think from Holo Taco or a brand that I swatch for that would be similar, feel free to let me know and I'll try to get a comparison up for them. And the final round of comparisons for Short Stack, I pulled out ILNP's Woven, ILNP Under the Covers, and then Holo Taco's See Ya Later Chai. See Ya Later Chai was recently discontinued. For ILNP, I do feel like all three of these shades are all like similar vibes, but also clearly different. I feel like Short Stack is a good in-between color of these two shades here. Like it's right in the middle of those shades. So I feel like this is definitely one of those like filling holes polishes in the catalog, if you will. And See Ya Later Chai is, I don't know. I just pulled this one out because I knew it was discontinued and I figured it might be similar. It was not similar. Okie dokie, so final thoughts time. So first up for the Playground collection, I feel like this is a very interesting color story as well as idea for a collection for a spring release. Usually when we see these kind of like playground kind of releases, is usually more towards back to school time in like August, September. So I feel like as a spring collection, I kind of am vibing with it a little bit just because I feel like it's atypical for spring. And I just always appreciate when brands do things that are atypical for spring. I feel like thus far for spring, ILNP has done things that haven't interested me personally. I like the vibe of this collection, even though it feels a little juvenile at the same time. I had really high hopes for these speckled polishes in this release. I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with ILNP speckled polishes. I love them in theory, but I feel like I love how they look in photos, and then when I get them on my nails, I just want more somehow. Scribbles does indeed fix my problem, and it's not even a real problem, it's just like a personal preference thing. I feel like Scribbles does solve my problem that I have with the speckles, because every single time I have worn one of the speckled ILNP polishes for personal wear, I have always put like a hollow topper on top of them just to give it a bit more sparkle. So I'm really, really excited to see ILNP release more of these speckled finish polishes with the additional holographic. I feel like my personal top picks, however, from the Playground collection is going to be a toss-up between Caterpillar and Recess. I feel like those two shades, I was just like, oh, while I was wearing them, I really, really like them a lot. I love how saturated they are. I like that they're not fully opaque. I like how they're kind of like juicy and squishy on the nail because they're jelly bases. I really, really like those two shades. As far as the brunch collection, I thought the polishes in this release were absolutely fantastic. The formulas were really, really great. The color story, not so much my particular cup of tea. I feel like it leans a little bit too spring pastel. And I feel like since it's like lacking in like the rainbowiness of it all, that like I can't really vibe with the pasteliness of it, because it's just, I need a rainbow to like pastels, or they have to be really like bright. I feel like if they're not leaning in neon pastel territory, or there's not a rainbow, I have a really hard time truly enjoying pastels. So this was not the color story for me personally, but I do feel like the imagery of this particular release, I can definitely see this as brunch. I feel like the colors of this are just giving me kind of like macaron vibes for whatever reason, like macaron, matcha tea, all of that kind of stuff. I feel like that's what I'm seeing in this release. So I feel like the release itself is good, even if it's not for me personally. As far as pricing and sale information goes, both of these releases will be available starting on Friday, February 27th on the ILNP website. For the first 3 days of sale, all of the polishes in these releases will be 10% off on the ILNP website. I believe once that 3-day period is over, the polishes should start popping up on both the ILNP Amazon page as well as their Etsy page. ILNP Studio Color polishes are all priced at $10 each, and their regular boutique line are all priced at $12.50. ILNP has a 12 milliliter bottle. As far as boutique brands go, ILNP is going to be the brand that gets you the most bang for your buck as far as like $2 ml goes. And because this is ILNP we're talking about, neither of these releases are considered limited edition, and they will be around for quite a while. If you enjoy ILNP polishes, don't forget to check out my ILNP playlist, as well as I posted somewhat recently all of my favorite ILNP polishes ever. So I'd love to know what everyone else thought of these two releases. Are you planning on picking them up? Before we end today's video, I do want to give a very special shout out to my channel members. Shenanigang Story fans, your names of course all on the screen right now. Channel members in Shenanigang tier or higher, we do have a members exclusive live stream happening this Friday. If you would like to sign up for my channel memberships, there is a link for that in the description box, or you can click join next to the subscribe button. But as always, signing up for my channel memberships is completely optional. Just like the video, comment on the video, share the video, hype the video up if you have access to that feature, and any of that's greatly appreciated. So just thank you all for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a lovely week, folks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
When I get high, I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like